Erinvironment.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Erinvironment, where she is the certified environmentalist, and I am a certified pastoral mentalist. Oh, thanks for laughing at that. I appreciate it.
I did like it.
And I texted you at what was like midnight my time, so it must have been like 5 in the
5
morning your
a.m.
time.
Yeah.
I hope you keep your phone on silent. I apologize.
Most nights.
Either way, it was inappropriate of normal time my time or normal time your time to be
Yeah,
texting you.
both of those times were bad.
But I was thinking we should talk about resurrection. Normally, you know, people think of that in a certain light, but for me, it actually means a lot about the environment or the air environment, if you will.
As it were.
Yeah. So I texted you and said you want to kind of like chat about this because what that actually is a lot bigger than most people know. And you said yes. But then you tweeted that I had to do all the talking or lead. So I hope you'll hijack me just as I hijack you all the time.
Absolutely. I'm always here.
Likewise, it's Easter Resurrection Week this week, so to some extent, is a good time to talk about resurrection because
Yep.
that's what that's all about. So I thought it'd be helpful. You're helping me kind of craft what I need to say on Sunday as well, based on what a lot of people know about resurrection and whatnot. So
Woo!
resurrection for you, what Easter is all about for you. Tell me that first, because a lot of times the modern church has heard a kind of truncated spin on this. So what does Easter and resurrection and all that mean for you?
So actually, you and I have a lot of the same opinions about how the modern church approaches resurrection. But for me personally, it is supposed to be like a time of celebration. So the resurrection is this amazing act of love and sacrifice for all of us, so that way we can live in God and like attempt to not attempt like Christ died so that way when we sin and we ask God to forgive those sins, we can live sinless, as it were. Like, not that after I'm saved, my actions are no longer sin, but they have a forgiveness behind them.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's more of a lifestyle change, I feel like. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of that is similar to the way that I was kind of brought up is a lot of the words and languages you just use kind of have a lot of focus on like
Yeah.
the Lent, the sacrificial time, as well as Good Friday, the dying on
Mhm.
the cross. And a lot of that I think kind of comes from we had this huge kind of evangelistic movement in the church where every service was an attempt to get people saved by the time that they walked out.
Yep.
And so for me, Easter became about Jesus dying on a cross and the fact that he rose from the dead and went into heaven, like that was all kind of secondary.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what Easter's about. Good Friday is about the cross, you know.
Yeah, Easter is about like we should honestly I want to party. Like on Easter Sunday, all I want to do is have a big giant party and have everyone I know over, obviously not right now, and then we just hang out and we party cuz we're all so happy because like our savior's alive and we're alive.
Mm. And that's like the huge deal for the early church is that spoke volumes to them, not only about who Jesus was, but about who they were. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of where I wanted to hone in because this is where things get truncated, get cut off. Is it's like even if we can wrap our mind around the fact that Jesus is still alive today and up in heaven, like what that means to us is like, so now we get to go to heaven too. But there's various stages and levels of like afterlife biblical understanding, if you will, and resurrection is like the fullest version of it all. So, like in the Old Testament,
Hmm.
it sounds weird to people because it's so normal to us, but in the Old Testament, you had heaven and, sorry, and today we have heaven and hell. In the Old Testament, you had Sheol, which was
Right.
maybe you've heard it in a song or you've seen it show up throughout the Bible. And if you ask people what it is, usually they say hell or something, you know. But Sheol in the Old Testament was the only afterlife that they really thought about for the most part, was when you died, everyone went to the same place. Didn't matter if you were good person, bad person, following God or not. Like there was just one afterlife where it probably like it could be unpleasant because there are plenty of like spiritual beings that were rebellious against God there, but also maybe not like it's not like this idea of like, you know, whipping or like Simpsons always blowing up hell
Right.
out of proportion. You know, it's nothing like that. It's just an
No
unpleasant
torturous
place.
donut eating. Got it.
Yes, it's just an unpleasant place where everybody goes when they die. Everybody, not just one.
Well,
Now,
kind of like how the Greeks have Hades and everyone just goes there.
yes, and that's actually the next part because Hades shows up in the New Testament, right?
Does he?
Hades shows up in Revelation. When I'm using, I'm not referring necessarily to the Greek god Hades, but like Hades as a destination.
Right.
It shows up, and for a long time, when people reference Hades in the New Testament, if you ask someone, they're just going to say, "Yeah, that's hell." It's not though. Now that Bible scholars are really trying to pay attention to the Bible and the way it was written in Greek culture, they're
Hmm.
like, "No, Hades is Sheol." So like the New Testament still had this understanding to some extent that there is this destination for the dead that was always Sheol, but in Greek terms you'd use the word Hades, like that's where all the dead go. What was new to them though with Jesus is he started making it clear that there is such a thing as resurrection, and there's a few verses in the Old Testament, very few, but especially
Right.
Daniel, that says like we'll go on to awaken from the dust and go to be with God.
Isn't
Anyway,
isn't
yeah,
there this story in the Old Testament where it's in the afterlife and there's like a separation
Corona coughs.
between I don't know. A separation between this man and someone else he knew and they couldn't touch each other. Is that a story that I'm thinking of or
Yeah, you're thinking of Abraham
that's the one?
and Lazarus,
Hmm.
but that's a New Testament parable from Jesus.
Dang it.
Um, and well, so
I
with
know
that
Bible.
parable, well, with that parable, a lot of people take that and they try to say like, okay, so here's another example as to how the afterlife looks. But some more recent research has shown that that parable sounds a lot like a lot of um, ancient folk tales.
Okay.
So they think like in the same way I might take, you know, like the story of the boy who cried wolf and put a new light on it, but you would never expect that there was a boy actually out there crying wolf or whatever. That Jesus was taking a folk tale of his own time and putting a new spin on it to turn it into a parable. So I'd suggest that that story isn't necessarily one to look at and say like this is what the afterlife looks like, simply because it doesn't match very well with a lot of the other understandings of afterlife in the Bible, and it does match well with taking a folktale and putting a new spin on it.
Got it.
So, but what you do see in the New Testament is like Sheol in the Old Testament is Hades in the New Testament. It's this place where the dead are expected to go. But Jesus begins to shift things, which you see very easily with the thief who dies on the cross next to him, but he accepted Jesus, right? And
Yeah.
he says, Jesus tells him, I'll see you in paradise. So like, there's this new like assurance to him, like those who have been following God
Hmm.
more or less like it's not that you go to Sheol and God pulls you out, but there's this idea of like they always hope for the rescue from Sheol. Yes, there's the affirmation there that when you die, if you've been following Jesus, you go straight to heaven, the spiritual place. And
Mhm.
you go to Revelation, you see all the martyrs who have died are all there in heaven with Jesus. So like you see like, hey, they bypass Sheol, Hades, that place where everybody goes. They're still in the afterlife, but they're in this heavenly kind of version of it. But everyone else is still in Sheol. They're not necessarily in hell.
Right.
They're in this other place. When you get to the end of Revelation, that's when a lake of fire comes up, and some people are going to go on to resurrection, and some people are going to go on to what basically seems to be the end of existence, uh, burned up in this lake of fire that, in my opinion, does away with your entire being. That
Like a
to me,
piece of
though,
paper.
yeah. So like, you get these phrases of like unquenchable fire, which for us is like this idea like I'm burning and I just continue to burn. But
Right.
I think the phrase is more like you've seen a forest fire on TV and it can't be stopped. It's unquenchable. Eventually it is going to stop after it's eaten everything up, but you can't put it out no matter how hard you try,
Right.
things like. So that's more of what I hell is. So now we've got different phases of biblical afterlife. I know, what does this have to do with the environment?
I'm like, I'm hoping we're gonna get there. Although it is very interesting. So
Yeah. So when you die, the idea in the Old Testament was you all go to Sheol or Hades. In the New Testament, there's this understanding that if you've been following God, he saves you from Sheol to come to be with him. And then there's this idea at the end with the lake of fire being hell itself that does away with everything that is not following after God and therefore is following after something else, i.e., Satan or a minion of sorts.
right.
But then there's a phase after that, and this is what happens to those not in this lake of fire. Don't touch your face. Corona touches.
Sorry.
Uh, those who don't go to this lake of fire, they're actually coming to be on the earth again. So the picture that's painted, and this takes us into what people call the rapture, but I think they generally misunderstand it. There's only like 2 verses in the Bible that sound like the rapture, and it doesn't line up the way we think of it. The idea is all these Christians throughout the centuries who have died, who are up with Jesus in heaven, are on their way down to the earth to take it back. And um, if you are a Christian on the earth, the idea that people turn into the rapture is like we're leaving the earth as Jesus is coming down to join him in this whole group of Christians coming downwards.
Right.
That's not like we leave earth to go be with God in heaven and the earth doesn't matter. It's all going to hell in a handbasket and all that. It's rather Jesus is coming back to take the entire earth, to make it his kingdom, bringing all the Christians. And if you're still here, you join him in the skies as he comes down.
So
Right.
yeah, so it's not like a physical leaving of the earth per se, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's not, I don't see in the Bible this idea that like whoop, we all vanished. There's only people who didn't follow Jesus left,
All right,
rather
less
like,
left behind.
yeah, well, that's what a lot of people take to be biblical truth though.
Mhm.
And that there's only 2 verses that can be like taken that way. And I think that's out of context. I think the idea is like Jesus is coming. Whoa, we're supposed to be up there with him, not here, so let's go join him in the clouds as he's surfing down
Right.
and then come down with him. And when that happens, that's where you see like this, some go on to resurrection life, which is the fullness of life, where every person that might be in this spiritual state of sorts in the heavens is now given a new body that lives it's a physical body like Jesus's was. When Jesus was resurrected,
Right.
he wasn't just a spirit, and he tried to make that clear because like disciples are like, he's a ghost, and then he just eats a piece of fish, right? He's like, look, I just ate that. Spirits don't eat fish. Like that's the
Right.
point. And then he walks through a wall, which is like, okay, that's not something that bodies right now
Right.
do. But
Like
like the
like
fish
yeah,
doesn't fall out when he walks through it, like it stays with him. So like
right. It's
there's
not a
this,
bit.
yeah. Well, for us, we always think like the things Jesus did after he was resurrected. Not many stories, but like he can walk through walls, he can ascend into heaven, he could do these things. Like we
Right.
think he did that because he was God.
Yeah.
I would propose that he's showing us a glimpse of what the resurrected body that one day we put on has the capacity to do. Like the disciples are looking at this and they're like, this is what we get to
Man, at
do. So
that point
they
doors
do.
are unnecessary is what you're saying. We're just gonna build walls and walk through them.
Well, I mean, what in the book of Revelation, they build gates and then they never have to close them. So, like, what's the point of gates in the first place? Everything's finally safe. Right? So, anyways, we're talking about physicality here already. Resurrection is not a disembodied spiritual state.
Right.
That's kind of this intermediate phase on the way to resurrection. If we died now, we go to heaven. But later, the point is to come back to the earth. The earth is made new and we live here again. It's like a reset button. If we would have gotten it right in Eden the first time, we
Right.
would have probably gone on to this glorified state, but we didn't. So, um, Jesus has saved us from all of that sin, and eventually we'll hit that reset button, and this time we'll get it right in this kind of glorified state. Did you ever read Paralandra by C.S. Lewis?
Negative Ghost Rider.
He goes to Venus and finds basically the Adam and Eve of Venus, and
Okay.
like they're being tempted. That's the phase he shows up in, and they hate to spoil the end, but you're all like 100 years behind. They they don't give in to temptation, and they're like instantly enters into this like glorified state, if you will. So
Uh,
C.S. Lewis was kind of picturing like what our resurrection is like later is exactly what they just kind of skipped right to because they got it right the first time. So
yeah.
it's fiction, of course, but yeah.
So, I mean, you've been listening for a few weeks, right, with me here. You mentioned earlier that like Christ comes down and then makes the earth anew, right?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah. So, well, that's what we've been talking. I've at least kept saying that to the point that I probably sound like a broken record, but like
Yeah.
this is a this is a huge problem with the Christian conception
Yup.
of like the earth doesn't matter, it's all going to burn up, it's all going away, who cares? Like
Exactly.
the biblical understanding is first off, you were put here to take care of this place.
Yep.
Angels have a different territory where they're, a different domain that they have stuff to do, but you as a human being were given the earth, and God's like, basically like he could take care of it. We already know that. Instead, he made you and told you to do it. So the idea of just like, well, it's all going to burn up and go away, who cares? That's not resurrection. Resurrection is there is a fullness of life coming in which the whole world will be redeemed. And this is why you see Paul talking about like creation is groaning for the awakening of the fullness, like
Yeah.
one day when Christians are made real, Paul sees that like all of creation in a sense is going to be made real and reignited, and it will have its own kind of place in this resurrection life. So like the idea of it all just going away, like scholars land on different spots for that. Like some are like they think that the good stuff we're doing right now, like that's installing the kingdom of heaven right now, and that carries over when heaven comes in its fullness.
Right.
Others would say, nah, they thought the whole thing was just going to blow up and God would start over. I don't really feel
I don't
convinced totally
I
that
don't
way, but you do
yeah, I
see
don't feel
Jesus
like God would
being.
give us dominion over a whole planet and then go like, "All right, but here's everything you did wrong," and then just scraps it from the beginning and then starts over. 'Cause like, what was the point of our entire
Yeah,
existence?
yeah,
Why am I here?
yeah, and I think that's a powerful statement. Is essentially like, what's still wrong? Well, it has to be renewed. It has to be made different because it is corrupt. Like that was part of the curse in
Right.
Genesis. Is like, hey, there's thorns in the
Yeah.
world. That wasn't a part of God's original plan. So like,
But
even
also
down
like,
to like,
I'm here. I'm
yeah,
corrupt.
hmm
I need to be made new. Like,
yeah,
what why am I not allowed? Why can't we extend that past ourselves? Like we need to extend that
mhm.
past ourselves. If it's true for me and it's true for you, then it's true for everything.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the beautiful part of it is like, and C.S. Lewis talks at one point about like nature being our mother, and I'm paraphrasing probably horribly, but he's essentially like, one day we'll see her new and we'll recognize both our mother and playfellow, but it will be different at the same time. And that's like this beautiful light of what's ahead of us. It's not the uh I mean, there's uncreation before new creation. Things do fall apart because it is corrupt to its like down to some of the finest details and has to
Mhm.
be made new.
Right?
But I don't think the biblical understanding is like it's it's all just blown up and we start over. I think it's almost like the working with what we already have. And I think one of my I've got the longest quote ever. You're gonna hate it, but or you might love it. I don't know, but
I mean, we
Merritt.
reading a long thing, so I think I can handle this.
Yeah. One technical difficulties before we start this. Well, Meredith G. Klein has a book called God, Heaven, and Armageddon, and like he's a he's a biblical scholar who's willing to be pretty out there sometimes in his imagination, but like he thinks of Isaiah. You know, in Isaiah, it's a more popular passage where it's like the wolf will dwell with the lamb, the leopard lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion.
Mhm.
Like it's all these creatures that shouldn't be together, just hanging out with one another. Um, Scholars will often say like this is a picture of like when God makes all things new and right again. Like, and you even see that um, humanity wasn't granted the humanity wasn't even supposed to be eating animals until after Noah's flood. At
Right.
which point, like God was basically like, I'm gonna just grant that you can continue to do that, even though that wasn't a part of the plan. Uh, but like so this is a picture like of what the earth would be like when it gets back to the way that it's supposed to be. Same thing with Daniel. Daniel in many ways is pictured as a guy who really tried to get everything right and was like close to being the perfect human but didn't do it. Like
Yeah.
Daniel, vegetarian, and he told King Nebuchadnezzar, like, we're just going to eat vegetables and look at what we look like at the end of this. We'll look healthier than the rest of them. And like the point the Bible's trying to paint is like Daniel's trying to be the perfect human being that
Mhm.
has yet to be seen. Of course, he fails, but Jesus
Which is
ultimately does.
why you promised to give up bacon. So,
Yeah. Tell that to the 2 packs I bought yesterday. So look, God said I could. He may not have been happy about it, but he said I could. Okay, so this is Meredith G. Klein just imagining what if what if like the lion lying down with the lamb. Yes, of course that could just be metaphorical. We all understand like peace is finally here. He's like, what if that is like more of a literal picture of resurrection life? So I'm going to read this. I think you'll like it,
mhm.
but because he gets into the environment a lot. And he says, where should I start? A more likely option, then, is the hypothesis that a radical cosmic convulsion will occur at the end of this world age, followed at once by a restructuring that yields a cosmos which is a stabilized, optimal spatial environment for glorified humanity. Such a consummated world might differ markedly from the pre-consummation world. It might not have a planetary focus for the citizens of heaven with a stellar system, with a galactic distribution pattern akin of that of the present universe. Its Earth might be a kind of glory suffused cosmic orb beyond our imagining. On the other hand, the stabilized new Earth produced by the recreation might more or less resemble the old Earth. By way of assessing whether the continuity or discontinuity possibility deserves a preference, all we shall attempt to do here is to reflect briefly on certain biblical data that have been seen as relevant to the question. Sorry, his words are a little more intense than my usual. On a more literal interpretation of the prophecies of the coming kingdom in Isaiah 11, which was this, a lion and the lamb lying down together, if you will, they would
Right.
indicate that the future world will contain fauna and flora recognizably like varieties found on the present Earth, even if some remarkable changes like carnivores turned herbivorous. And if the morphology of subhuman life would be similar to that of this world, a corresponding continuity would presumably obtain in the meteorological sphere, the general physics, and cosmic framework of the new Earth. An incidental problem for this or any other view that posits a continuation of present plants and animals in the future world is how they manage to survive the cataclysmic ending of this age. One possibility would be to postulate some antipical functional equivalent of Noah's Ark, in which all animals and vegetation were preserved through the diluvian prototypical ending of the world. In other words, maybe a new Noah's Ark of sorts.
Right.
Might save what's here. But then he says another possible solution would be to assume restoration by recreation. An interesting related question would concern the particular species that would be perpetuated. Just those that remained on the scene at the end of the world? Or all that ever existed, including the non-human hominids? What's a hominid, Aaron?
A hominid? How did you spell that?
Hominids.
They're apes.
Apes? Okay, so
Yeah.
like
I thought you said like homonym, like the word homonym or something.
hominome? Yeah.
Whatever. Hominid. Yeah,
So
that's the great apes, primates.
okay, so then he's like maybe everything that ever existed along the chain of evolution, if you will, like
Yep.
suddenly there in the new creation. Or then he says, or maybe some selection according to the creator's wisdom. Uh, let's see. I'm already reading forever, and he's kind of dense. Whatever the
It is
meaning. Oh,
very verbose. I'll give you that.
yeah, it's not a very easy sentence by sentence book. Whatever the meaning of Isaiah's prophecies, there are considerations that favor the prospect of a new earth with fauna and flora of some sort. Although an earth with an ecology like the present earth would not be a biological necessity for those inspired by the heavenly spirit of life, it would not be an incongruous life setting for a glorified man. Human procreation would no longer figure in the biological, ecological order, but
Fair.
glory dimension beings could function within it in other ways, if we may judge from the analogous situations of earthly visitations of angels and the activities of Jesus in his resurrection appearances. Again, he did weird things after he was resurrected, weirder than all the other stuff he had done before. Just walking through doors.
Right.
You can't recognize him sometimes, and then suddenly he's like, "Hey, it's me," and they're like, "I was just with you for like an hour. I didn't even notice." Like those things are not normal human things.
Right.
uh, Anyways, I think you probably get the picture, but I
Yeah.
don't know what he paints in my mind. Did you ever see that movie Annihilation?
No, what's that?
It's with Padme. I mean, we're nerds. You know who
I know exactly who you're talking about.
what's her face, Padme.
I'm so mad right now because thanks to you, I have forgotten her actual name.
Padme, actress.
Thank you. Good Lord.
Natalie Portman.
That's it. I was like, I know her name. It starts with an N, and her last name starts with a P.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not saying Resurrection is like Aliens, but what I am saying is in that movie, like there's this weird like thing taking over the earth, and as it takes it over, creatures kind of morph into other creatures,
Right.
and, and some of them are super disturbing. But there's like some scenes where there's like these deer who just have like the most majestic, glorified look to them, and I'm like what if, in the resurrection, like we've
Right.
got this kind of glorified appearance. What if there's other creatures there
Oh,
too?
like the forest spirit in Princess Mononoke.
See, I say one movie you haven't seen, you say a movie I haven't seen. Sure.
Okay, never mind.
But like,
Yeah.
what if that's like the new heaven and the new earth? A lot of people think that's like it's all just done away with, dogs, cats aren't in heaven, things like that. But like what if in the new creation when God makes things new, like there's more than just humans? I mean,
Yeah.
did he mess up the first time when he made other stuff? Like I would say no. So like what if the new earth, is just like a recreation in a new way? I don't know. For me, heaven is kind of uncomprehendable. There's that song I Can Only Imagine, and the whole thing is just like, what's it gonna be like? I don't know. And like the ultimate ending, and that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like I'm gonna die and go to heaven, whatever that exactly entails or is like. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Knowing resurrection is a thing makes me so happy because I'm like, I recognize that. I understand that.
Yeah.
Even if the earth is completely different, I'll know it to some extent and enjoy that and want to be in that. Like, I'm not super thrilled about the idea of like one day I leave Earth and I'll never see it again. I like it here. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was the thing I was just thinking about where like if we're coming back, like can you just imagine like you're one of your ancestors from like
Yeah.
I don't know 1300 coming back and then just seeing this mess that we've left, just being like,
You
are
guys
you
done screwed this up.
kidding me right now? Well, like, so the Shakespeare play Macbeth,
Yeah.
and there's this
I know the
wood.
Jimmy Neutron version of it, just to be clear.
Okay, well, there's this a forest called the Burnham Wood, and the Lord Duncan's his army like pretends to be Burnham Wood, and Burnham Wood is an actual place in Scotland. Like
Hmm.
I've been there and I got to see like one of the oak trees that's said to be part of the original Burnham Wood, but it's only like a couple of trees now. There's not really any ancient forests there anymore. And that's wild. So can you imagine Shakespeare coming back and being like, "Oh, this is not what I left here. Like what did you people do?" Like
He'd
it's
probably say, you burned them wood.
boo, boo forever on that joke.
Sorry. Go on.
Right, but like that alone should be like, oh, it's not just Jesus coming back, it's everyone. It's
Hmm.
everyone always forever, and you're gonna have them come here and see what we've done and we haven't taken care of it. Like I would be sad and ashamed and embarrassed.
Well, at least the good news is it all gets fixed. It's just
Yeah, it
maybe
is.
there'll be even a glorified version of Burnham Woods by then. I don't know, but I don't know. There's something I didn't think understanding resurrection better would change my life or anything, but it really has. Like
Yeah.
we had someone die, an acquaintance this year, and in the past I would have like processed that more of like a Don't know what's on the other side. I got no words to tell anyone.
Right.
I don't even. I guess I'll see them when I get to heaven if I even know who they are anymore, you know? And like instead, it's like, that sucks. They passed. Fortunately, we'll all come back and we'll be able to do round two, And like, it'll all be like, I know that sounds weird, but it's a different state of mind. And
It really is.
it's
It's
the
like when
assurance the early church had.
it's like when we were talking about Easter earlier, and like we all kind of, I just feels like you glaze over the resurrection story always. Like it's even when you go to sunrise service, it's just like, oh, and Jesus is alive, but he died for our sins, and it's like cool, and that's great, and also very important to our religion, but also he's alive now, and why are we all sad, and why aren't we having like the biggest party ever forever?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the early church had to get that because, like, they were putting their lives on the line. They
yeah,
were giving up Earth early. I don't think just because they're like, I'll just go be in heaven, but because they know, like, if I lose this now, I'll be back, you know,
yeah.
and like it's gonna be okay. Like,
It's not, there's not a finality to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's, I know it's a weird intersection of science and spiritual, but like for me, both are true. So like, I expect this new existence. If it is like Jesus, where he can walk through walls but also eat a fish, like that's a kind of science I don't get yet. Or maybe it's both, but whatever that is. And will it be the case that, like, just like he crossed over to heaven, was that something he did because he was God, or was that something that the resurrection body can do?
Right.
Because it's a new heaven and new earth. So
I
maybe,
mean,
like,
yeah.
even at that point, it's like, all right, guys, I gotta take off. I'll be right back. Just like,
We could be Star Trekking it all over the place at
we
that point.
could. Who knows? I don't know.
In the Star Trek universe, they had some sort of Mad Max type thing happen, and then they became the Star Trek universe after that. So,
Yeah. Well,
what I'm saying
there's
is Captain Picard is a reality.
well, good. My wife needs to hear that right now as she tries to finish that series. Yeah, I don't know. The environment is not done away with. It's not unimportant. It is central to the story. It was the hope of the people of the Old Testament that maybe we would awaken back to life, but who knows? And it was the assurance of the New Testament that that would happen. And 1 Corinthians 15 is like the biggest thing about these new human bodies. Paul's like, your body right now is just like a kernel of a seed of what's to come. Like,
Right.
it's going to be buried in the ground, and then it's going to grow back into resurrection life eventually. And that new body is imperishable. It's basically immortal, like it's just this, it speaks volumes to plenty of other stories in the Bible. Psalm 82, God tells all the fallen spiritual beings, like, you're all immortal, but you're all going to die like men. Like, that's not what spiritual beings are supposed to do. But
Right.
then he tells Christians, you're all dying like men and women, but one day you're going to be immortal, like you're the replacement plan of the fallen spiritual beings. I'll
Yeah.
do away with corruption, whether it's spiritual or physical. And one day, reset button, Eden's back, things are perfect, the whole world is fixed. And
Yeah. Oh, there's
probably still be stuff to do.
gosh, yeah. I mean, we're not just gonna be sitting a blank void and hang out with each other.
Yeah.
Um, just the Bible from start to finish, and like obviously from the example today, is just constantly connecting itself with ecosystems and nature and creation, like literally what we would think of when someone says creation, Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Like man-made structures are like square and devoid of life mostly because we can't create it, and it's just mind-blowing that people can like see this common thread throughout the Bible and still ignore that it's there. And even when it comes to like the resurrection or our resurrection or the end times, there's still like a theme. Like the earth is important. Animals and creatures and plants, they're all important.
Yeah. From beginning to end, quite
Yeah.
literally.
Front, front, cover to cover.
Yeah. There's never this point where the idea being communicated in the Bible is like one day we all die and go to heaven, and that's the end of the story.
Mhm.
The fullness of it is if we die now, we will go to heaven. But if we don't, and Jesus comes back, we'll enter the resurrection with them as they return, and everything wrong be done away with, and everything right will be fixed. The earth that's been groaning for that moment will finally be happy that it's come, and everything will be made new. And yeah, I don't think we're going to recognize that very well. Jesus was clear to the Sadducees, like, they're like, this woman was married to 7 people before she died. So which one's her husband in this resurrection life of yours? And Jesus was like, you don't understand what resurrection is like. Like, there's no need for procreation, so there's no marriage. And his point wasn't like you won't know your spouse in heaven now or anything like that, because the
Right.
rest of the Bible Paul paints this picture of like, can't wait to see you all again. If I die, we'll catch up. Like the point of the resurrection is like it'll be a merry meeting when we can all finally get back together again.
Right.
So it obviously you will know your spouse, or whatever, but at the same time, at that point, everything that marriage represents right now, and its romance and its commitment and its covenant to each other, that's like a teaser of the fullness that we'll find in our marriage as a church with God, with
Right.
Jesus. So like we get a teaser right now. Likewise, the Sabbath. Oh, that's a whole nother thing.
Hey, no, this is an environmental podcast.
Well, the Sabbath is supposed to be a teaser every single week. Like the fullness of rest is eventually coming.
Mhm.
And pause right now to remember that. Because God, like, he made the world in 7 days, and then he didn't just like rest forever. He's coming to finish the job, more or less. Maybe I'm exaggerating there, but like the idea is like he is going to create again. Eventually there is an 8th day in which everything is recreated, made new, and made perfect. So every week, pause, stop, rest, and recognize that there's a fullness of rest coming. And I
Right.
don't know if that means like there won't be anything to do kind of rest, because I think a lot of people find joy in doing stuff, and God made us that way. But there will be a restful kind of work ahead of us, like
It's like
imagine the joys.
it's like
Write
how
books.
college, for those of us who went to college, I was talking to someone about it, and it's like as if you have no responsibilities almost,
Yeah.
because the things that you do in that like environment, quote unquote, when you're in like your undergrad are just it's just you're just living your life.
Mhm.
Like you're just kind of doing whatever you want, and it's
Yeah.
basically it's for the most part consequence free, and you're just like people just do things like set up a table in an elevator and play cards, or like harmless things that are just quirky and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you got stuff like that ahead of us. Like, I would think in the new creation, I love writing music. I love writing books. That's work, but it's restful for me. Like,
Right.
now I've met God. Just imagine the books I'm going to write. Like, oh, it's so much better than I thought. Guys, check this out. Like, uh, same with music. Oh, now I finally see him. Check out these lyrics. Like, I think there'll be a resemblance of what we know now, but in the fullness of everything it should have been in the first place. So,
Right.
anyways, for anyone who's just heard the message that Christianity is about dying and going to a place that we don't understand and will never understand until we're there, That's not the story of the Bible. That's an intermediate phase along the way of the fullness of the Bible. And the good news about Easter is connected, yes, to your Erinvironment,
Woo!
that we get to come back. And if you like the earth now and you wish you didn't have to go away from it, then follow the guy who's putting it all back together, who made it, who likes it, who wants to recreate it, and wants you to be a part of it. So there's my Easter resurrection pitch right there. Any other thoughts you have or questions of something strange I said?
No, I feel like I was interjecting a lot, so it's okay.
You interjected just fine.
Oh,
I
perfect.
never felt like you hijacked me enough, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just bad at it. I'm more just like aware that I'm like, oh, I'm really listening. It's been a while since I've said stuff. Oh, yes.
Fair enough.
No, it was really good. It was really informative and interesting, and I really liked, you know, like our religion is the environment, and becomes more clear every week that we do this.
Perfect. Cool. Well, then I think that brings us to the end of the Erinvironment. We were going to try to stream this live on Facebook, but due to audio issues, we're unable to. So we premiered it instead. If you have questions, though, comment below. Me and Aaron will keep an eye on it, add in thoughts. And you can catch up with this on the 1208 podcast at 1208greenwood.com or on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or you can follow explicitly the Erinvironment on Twitter as well as SoundCloud.
Yeah.
If we still have space.
Or if you're commenting, you have any questions or things you'd like us to talk about, by all means.
Yep.
No problem.
Now, there's several other episodes before this, so make sure that you rewind and check those out as well.
Yeah, last episode was really good. It was very informative in ways to help the environment. So take a look, a listen, as it were.
Indeed. All right. Well, everyone stay healthy and quarantined. Don't lose your minds.
That's right.
That's why we made podcasts. For you to lose your minds with the Erinvironment. That's our new slogan. Lose your minds with the Erinvironment. We try to design a new one every week.
Good for us.
That and don't eat mangoes or kumquats or whatever they were.
Kumquats.
Yeah, those. Gross. No, don't. Do not do it.